sexual abuse, victim mentality, and spirituality. So, we're going to discuss about these three things all mixed up together in my life, through my life. So, I've been finding courage for like 3-4 days to talk about this topic, honestly, but just so difficult to talk about something like this. So, I went through a sexual abuse in my childhood, and it is very difficult to talk about it. It is, but of course, spirituality really helped me to heal with the problem and the trauma, everything. And I just so much wanted to talk about it here. But and it was so difficult for me to talk about. And then I just started to think, like, why is it difficult to talk about? Why? There are a lot of other things that I talk about and that are easy to talk about. Why this thing is such a problem? It is like there are, various other things that are dealt with, and I usually talk about it, in my channel. But why this thing is so difficult to talk about? And I realized that somewhere we live in a society where talking about you know, talking about you being the victim, presenting yourself as a victim is something that is little shameful. Okay. People will look at you in some shameful eyes, especially when there's something, when you're a victim of a sexual abuse. So we live in a society like that where where victims of sexual abuse somewhere they feel shameful about what has happened to them, they feel guilty about. And it is just so weird. There are whole, and I'm thinking, I am not a criminal. Why am I feeling the fear of talking about it? Why am I feeling the uncomfortableness? I mean, there's not a word like uncomfortableness, but why am I feeling uncomfortable talking about it? You know, there are other things that I've talked about. This has also been a part of my life, and this is, has spirituality has helped me, in healing myself, through this. Then why is it difficult? I don't know. Like it is it is such a shameful thing to be a victim of something, in our society. Whereas criminals are like, I don't know, there are a whole lot of, not all, but there are a whole lot of criminals who are like, many of them are politicians, many of them are, I don't know, they are walking so confidently, yaar. They're walking so confidently, okay, out there in our society, and victims feel uncomfortable, they feel shameful, you know, for talking about something that has happened to them, and especially something related to sexual abuse, okay. So yeah, it's just so weird. The very first point that I wanted to talk about was this, like, and I was just trying to reflect on what is stopping me, what is stopping me, to speak my own truth. It's been like 3 or 4 days, and I was just trying to find all the courage to talk about it, because it has been, my mind is like, bye, tell, just leave it, leave this topic, don't talk about it. And my heart is like, you have a story to tell, you dealt with something, and then you find ways of, you find spiritual ways of dealing with things, and there might be more people like you, and it might help somebody. Or even if it might not help somebody, but I have it, like, I have it here in my throat, and I just want to talk about it. What is stopping me? What? It's like people will know about it, and जो हमारी society, it's a, my mind is giving me all kinds of reasons. It's a personal thing, you should not talk about it, but it is also societal thing, personal and societal. I am only the part of the society, isn't it? And it happens with almost every other girl, some way or the other, okay. And I went through something like a I went to something in like childhood. I went through it in like childhood, so I have a different, I had a different kind of trauma towards it. it's just so difficult to talk. And I'm like, people will just know. But of course, people should know, isn't it? People should know what is happening in society and what is the truth of our society. Yeah? People should know, isn't it? And if and maybe I am the medium of that truth. So difficult. So one thing is that, and the other thing is that there's one more thing that makes me stop talking about, things. I do posted a few things upon sex and stuff like that, and it's just always a very difficult thing to do, on my page. And yeah, it has always been a very difficult thing to do, because somewhere I feel that, in the audience, out of 10 people, there would be one such immature person out there, thinking that why is she talking about it? Maybe she wants it or something, I don't know, it's just so weird, Yes, we have people like that, and I can feel it, There are people like that who think like that. But I talk about sex not because I want it, but because I have seen certain things in society, and there are things that should be changed. There is, it's time that some people talk about it like in a sensible manner, keep their perspective, keep their truth, or what they feel is right and wrong with stuff, I've always felt, things around this topic, and I always wanted to convey it, through my platform. So, yeah. So, yeah. What people don't realize is my pain behind it. I talk about it so that I can normalize the concept, and I can bring on some really mature content, or people start seeing things little maturely when it comes to sex. I try to put sex into that light, and yeah. But I know there would be one stupid person out there out of 10 who would be just thinking something else about it. So, yeah, it's just a little. The second point, why is it difficult to talk about? Okay, now let's come to the real thing. Yeah, so I had gone through an incident in my childhood where I was sexually abused, and it just, I mean, as a child, going through it as a child, a child hasn't even built concepts around it, and a child hasn't even, and it just makes me so angry. Like, a child can be an object of sex. What is wrong with people? What is wrong with people? And the fact that we have things like child pornography, still out there, people thinking, I don't know what is happening in society. It's just so damn stupid. It just makes me so angry, that there are real children out there who are acting in it even. It's so sick. Nothing can be so sick than that, So, a child who has no idea about it, a child who has not built any concept around it or anything. And at our time, there was no good touch, bad touch was taught. And the fact that we have to teach our children good touch, bad touch in itself is so insulting. I mean, insulting as, as adults, we should feel complete shame that we have come to a point as a society that we have to teach our children good touch, bad touch. Like, they have to literally think about it, even, you know, at an age where they have to think about all these things, you know, at the age that a child is, he or she just knows how to just play, just be, just carefree. And in that too, we have to teach them all these things. It's literally a shame on us as a society, literally. So, and things that, I don't know. So, yeah, it was really traumatic for me. I went completely, um, I went into complete trauma, and one things about things about trauma is that you don't feel it there and then. Okay, it's only when you grow up, you start to grow up, and then you realize that, when you start to, when you start to see problems in your life, and then you start asking question, why is this happening, what is it, when you start reflecting, and then you find, oh, it comes from that situation, or it comes from that trauma. So, yeah. So, when something like this happened for me, I kind of looked at everyone in an exaggerated manner, because it just, somewhere, like, my mind took on a completely, you know, my mind completely went into like survival mode and protective mode. Okay, I kind of started seeing everyone as, bad. Exaggeratedly. Like, I didn't see people for who they are. I saw everyone as bad. I started to see it. Okay, somewhere in a very exaggerated manner, like the whole world is bad. There are a lot of, you know there are a lot of bad people in the world. There are a lot of bad people in the world is what I started to think, and all of that. And yeah, it was, of course, I didn't realize it there and then, but now when I look back, I know I just went into, having my guards up all the time. And I think it's a solar plexus chakra, you know, that gets completely shut down. Okay, so when you don't feel protected, or when you don't feel, like you can keep your guards down, then your solar plexus chakra gets blocked completely. And I am not very much into chakras. I understand feminine, masculine much better. So yeah, I have always been somebody who was very much in my feminine energies, and all children are usually more in their feminine energies. Okay, so when an incident like this happened, I went into very toxic masculine energies. Like, it's like an imbalance way, may it's like I got very imbalanced and very protective in a very imbalanced way, very protective of myself in a very imbalanced way. I went into completely survival mode. So there are two things, okay? One is your creative, and the other is survival. When you feel that your survival, you're safe, you're secure, you have food, you have shelter, when you feel like that, only then creativity happens, only then feminine happens. But if you can't feel like that, feminine will be repressed, will be suppressed. Yeah, so yeah, I think somewhere in between, I completely had completely my guards up. At least till I was a teenager. Yeah, at least till or maybe it started to show more in my teenage years. I don't know. Yeah, I think because that is an age where, the topic opens up again. And even I think I was in 11th or 12th grade or what, and there was this new show by Amir Khan, Satyamev Jayate. It was such a beautiful show, and there one of the show came, and it was talking about sexual abuse and stuff like that. And then I could just recollect all my memories, and I could just understand and reflect upon, okay, this is it just somebody talked about it, somebody made a show on it, and people were coming and talked about it, so it just really helped me, and I recollected those incidents, and it's like, I had, your memory works to, when something wrong happens with you, your memory works to completely forget that incident, completely forget that, because you don't want it in your memory, and you do that also. But it comes up more in your feeling, behaviors and actions, and you would never know where is it coming from, because your mind wants to forget it, memory wants to forget it, and you do forget it. Like you don't want to think about it, okay, or and it's not there in your memory, it has seeped down into your feelings, emotions, behaviors, okay, it has become a pattern of you. So for me it became more of like I went completely into survival mode. So for me it happened like that. Yeah. So yeah, there are a lot of things that I can talk about it, but I don't know. I think for now let me just take one step at a time. So, yeah, and I started seeing sex in a very distorted manner. Like I started seeing it as, somewhere where something that, because of course, I felt as an object, so I started seeing sex in a very distorted manner. Also, I think we don't have very sensible people talking about it very maturely. I remember when I was in school, and we all have that reproduction chapter in our books and everything. I remember our teacher, she just left. I don't know, it was a moral science ka chapter or what. I don't know. She said that some else teacher will take it because I am not comfortable. So, and I was like, कि ऐसा ही क्या है कि we are not comfortable, like I don't know. Then it just put me into completely. I started to see it as a very negative thing. Something that is very negative. The people are not even comfortable talking about it or something like this. Around it. But when I moved to college, and it was a girls' college, so but we had our professor who is a male professor, and I think it was something we were reading, some story novel, I don't know, and he talked about it in such a mature way. It was so healing. It was so healing. How confidently he was talking, how sensibly he was talking about it. It was so healing, you know and it wasn't a distorted way he was talking about. Okay, he was talking about it in a very, in a very, like he was talking in his own truth, like he isn't feeling shame about it. He's very confident, and it's not like he is showing off confidence. It's like it's very much, it's inside also, he's feeling that confidence. I'm very good at reading people, so I know how confident he was and how mature and sensible he was, and he was confident because he knew it is the truth. He was very much in alignment with the truth inside of him, and it was so healing to know that you know people are talking about it in not a very distorted manner. People can talk about it in in such a mature way, without distortions of feeling shame and guilt. you know and I was reading about it only in an Instagram post. I think it is यार उनका नाम बहुत बड़ा है, सत्या राम कृष्ण समथिंग, आई एम फॉरगेटिंग इट, बट उनका यूट्यूब चैनल है सत्या स्पीक्स, ओके, उनका इंस्टाग्राम चैनल पे आई वाज रीडिंग दिस पोस्ट अराउंड सेक्स. सो उनका जो पोस्ट था वो बहुत अच्छा था. सो उसमें उन्होंने एक अच्छी बात बोली थी कि ईस्ट कैसे देखता है, ईस्ट सीज इट एज समथिंग विद शेम और गिल्ट, समथिंग लाइक दिस, डिस्टॉर्टेड मैनर में देखता है, ठीक है। एंड वेस्ट कैसे देखता है, see it as a freedom, as a symbol of freedom, or having more sexual partners, it's a freedom like, or something like that. Like, nobody is choosing to see it in a mature middle way, it is one of a natural process, you know yeah, it is one of a natural process. Like, you drink water, you have food, and you know it is one of a biological, biological occurrence, okay. But nobody is ready to see it in a more sensible way. Everybody is seeing it in a distorted manner. So I am like completely confused, and I feel so weird, and it's not a good feeling. I feel so anxious about it, you know. Um, one, because I've experienced something which is not good around it. Then I've seen people not, you know, talking in not such a good manner about it. But yeah, I think it's only when I grew a little older I started to heal myself. And I don't know, universe has a way of healing you. I don't know. In the first place, I asked why me? Why trauma was written for me? But yeah, you can't help it. So yeah, so I started healing it. I healed it in I don't know. I got off. I don't know. I saw a few books around it. I think one of the book that I read really healed the air around it. Okay, like really healed the air around it. I mean, I started seeing it in a much more healthy way, an undistorted way. It wasn't that distorted as, it is in society. And yeah, my perspective changed over it. And I started to think that, okay, maybe there are good people in the world as well. So, yeah, yeah. So, yeah. And of course, if you and if you read Enlightened Masters, and if you talk to them, then they also have a very healthy view of it. Nobody has a very, you know a bad or a negative view. I think it's always the other people around me who are really sleepwalking, is what I would say. I find that they have so not healthy view of something, of a biological occurrence. You know, people might laugh around it, people might think it is little devilish, and I just never got the whole point, of people behaving like that. I don't get the whole point. And okay, one more thing I wanted to discuss that. So okay, so when I grew up a little, I started to talk about it to my, to my female friend. So her reaction was like, "Arey, why didn't you do anything? You should have done something about it. Like, you could have. देखो पता कैसे नहीं चला? Like, how could you not know it?" But like, this was an instant reaction, and I thought it was very insensitive, very insensitive. Like, don't do that to anyone. um, when something like this happens, a person is already feeling very helpless, is already feeling powerless. And I read it in a research or something like that. When people go through something extreme like rape or something, they, I don't know, they feel powerless, it. And I read about it, like why people do it or something, why people rape or thing like that. And it was written that that's how they feel power over people, they feel, that's how they feel power over somebody, okay. Because yeah, they feel physically powerful over somebody, that's how they feel it. So yeah, and so उस वक्त मुझे समझ नहीं आया. When I read that research, I didn't understand at that time. But when I went back and I understood a whole lot of things, I don't know. They, they come up at the right time. Your soul, your body, it just knows, when to come up at the right time. So something would happen, and this trauma would just appear, and I'm reflecting on it and I'm healing it, reflecting on it and healing it, and it just happened all over the years I was growing up. So yeah, I was in first grade, imagine, and now it's like I'm moving towards 30. So imagine, so many years, and I don't know if there's still more to heal. I don't know. So yeah, I think it was very insensitive, but I don't blame her. She's also a kid like me. She's a teenager like me, and I cannot blame her for it. And I understand. I mean, I think, as you know, people feel very powerless as victims, you know. So now I completely went into like two traumas. Like, one is that something happened like this, and the other trauma is that, of course, I'm already feeling the shame of I couldn't protect myself. Okay, I couldn't do something about it. I was so powerless. So because I went numb, I am just a first grader, but I really beat myself up, and I really started to think that I cannot protect myself in any situation. People are bad and I cannot protect myself. People are bad and I cannot protect myself. Like, even in normal things, even in small little things, it doesn't have to be big, but in even small little things, I started to think that people are bad and I cannot protect myself. I am so powerless. Yeah, there are bad people. Bad people do things to you, and you cannot do think anything about it. And for many years, I lived with that kind of mentality, with kind of idea, with kind of concept. And it's only later, when I healed my other traumas, and I just, you know I don't know how it happened. I cannot really mark on a calendar or like what situation happened, and I could just heal it. But one day I just thought to myself, I was just a kid. I was just a first grader. How can you like I I just went into a distance, I just saw myself from a distance. Like, I saw my younger version, and I said, how can you expect a first grader, to be to do something about it? She is just a child. She cannot sh- and she is already thinking that everything is fine around her. Okay, like, of course, she has just come from home, and she hasn't really seen the world. She isn't aware about it. She is in her own, you know in her own way, in her own world. And you cannot expect a first grader or you cannot expect a child to, protect itself, and I just went a little numb at a point. Of course, anyone would. And even if anyone wouldn't, but I don't know what. But I cannot expect myself, such a big thing. I didn't knew what to do then. And it's okay. I had to forgive myself that, and I had to, I really beat myself up for, not being able to protect myself. But then I thought that it's just, you cannot expect this much from a first grader. Okay, you cannot. So yeah, there are a whole lot of things that I had to heal around it. I had to read books around it. I have to read researches around it. And as those things, researches and stuff like that has helped me in my journey, maybe somebody else might be there, for whom I can be a help. And I'm not even thinking of that it would be a help for somebody or not. More or like it is my story, and I just wanted to keep it. I want to keep that this is the truth of the society, and and I should not feel uncomfortable as a victim. Criminals should feel, or people who are doing stuff, they should feel shameful about it. You shouldn't. There are other things also I would want to talk about, but I think I would want to keep it till here. It's only, yeah. So